This is becoming an interesting video, and I've got to say, this started out to be one thing, and was about the Oyen Digital MiniPro RAID version 3, but this has turned out instead to be a troubleshooting video. When we started this process, we were asking a question from Bob, one of our subscribers, asking us to test the device, and that's what we've been doing. We've gone through different steps. For those that watch the video, suffice to say, I think this device has a problem. I'm not sure what it is. I like the design, like everything about it, the layout, all the documentation. But as we've been watching the way the device behaves, for those of you that are willing to watch the video and go through this, I hope this is a learning process, because my suggestion, even though we're not finished and I'm going to do some more, my suggestion is going to be to Bob, put this back in his hands, return this, get another device, we'll go through the procedure. But I'm not going to scrap what we've done, because I've learned a lot about the device and some idea procedures. For example, when testing the device, once we first got it out of the box and verified everything was copacetic, it's ready to go. We did the first test that you're going to see, then we did the second test. The second test is where problems started, and then it just exacerbated itself. As you watch it, you'll see how everything unfolds. Right now, I am in the other three tests we need to do. The first configuration, JBOD, those results. The second test for RAID 0, I run that test 3 times and it will not finish. I've given it a test that ought to take 5 minutes as long as an hour, and it'll time out. And I'm going to show you in just a minute what the results are for this third time. What will happen is the device will go offline. Okay, when it goes offline, unplug it. You have to turn the power off. Plug it back in, turn the power back on, it'll come back up. That shouldn't be happening. My concern is if you're going to use this as high performance storage, this device does not cover that. It's too flaky. So I don't know if it's a design anomaly or if it is the device has been out for a while. So this really could be an issue with manufacturing, which the company can take a look at and figure out on the line what's going on and what's happening, why it's happening. Now, I have mentioned, and I'll reiterate here in the beginning, that I could take the drives out and swap them to try and figure that out. But suffice to say, the problems I've had, I'm glad I've had them and not Bob, and I want to share with you guys, and that's what this video is about. So I'm hoping we'll do another video, because if Bob's going to send this back, absolutely he's within his time frame to get another one. We'll go through this again. But I want to document the whole process so you know all the procedures. Let's see the results right quick, because I want to document everything where we're at. Now, this has been running, to reiterate again, the process for about an hour. The second time we got further with the results, and if you'll notice here, on our read is 884, which is okay. It never did finish the write. The second time I got a number on the writes, but I'm going to show you the drive, and 3 times I've tried to run this test, and 3 times it just stops. And if I show you again, it looks like it says preparing. Well, to look again at the drive, yeah, look at there, and I've got the markup because the test is frozen. But if you look at that, there's those 3 cache files, and that says up there now not responding. So the drive's gone offline again, which means if we bring up either a device manager or preferably go into drive management and bring that up, it's probably going to show the drive is off. And if I put the camera on, you'll see the lights are on. When it went offline, the lights go out, showing that it's disconnected, and that's when we have to do all that. Okay, I'm going to bring up the screen and show you the results of the test number 2, which is RAID 0, second time. That's as far as we've gotten, because what you just seen is the third time. And always, to reiterate, technology is great when it works, pile of junk when it don't. And because it's frozen, it's not going to even let us bring up our screenshots, which means because the device is hung up, I'm going to have to disconnect the device, and it'll go through the issue again where Windows says when I plug it back in that there's a problem. We need to take a look at it. It'll take a look at it and see there's no problem, then let it run. So what I'm finding is as I configure it, I was not able to configure it and use it. I was able to configure it, but then when I tested it, so what I think needs to happen based on the way it's performing right now, configure it, shut it down, power it back up. Shouldn't be that way. You should be able to configure it and go. We haven't even had a chance to talk about the chipset, which is an ASMedia chipset, but I'll have the link up. There's a lot of testing here, and as we've gone back and forth with stuff. At one point, I take responsibility for some of the problems that occurred that I didn't realize was a problem, and I think it was me. But overall, you know, I still like the design, and this is the first Oyen digital device we've ever looked at. But the implementation, I think there's something funky going on. This should not happen. And I would not want this to happen to Bob or any one of you guys. So we'll try again, see if I can bring up this test. But first I'm going to have to disconnect the drive. I'll put it up on screen so you can see what's happening with the camera. So you can see the drives are just running like mad. And you can see the drive over here on the left where my finger's at. You can see the device has power. So I'm not going to put the camera down and show you, but I'm going to disconnect. Now, when I disconnect, these two lights are going to go out. I've just disconnected. And those lights are still running rampant. I have no connection to the computer. So while those lights are still running, something crazy is going on. I'm going to minimize, or I'm going to just close that application. Wow. I can't even close the application. The computer's not froze, but those applications are. So I'm going to try to do a minimize. Okay, I got them minimized. I'm going to go to Control Panel, Administrative Tools. I'm going to bring up again Computer Management, and I'm going to go to Disk Management, and you'll see once there's, okay, shows that it's gone. But that drive is still running. You still see those two lights. So what I need to do now is turn off the switch on the back to make it stop whatever it's doing, because it's just going nuts. Okay, all power is gone. I'll wait a few seconds. I'm going to plug it back into the computer. And I won't show you, but I'll tell you, I'm plugging into the USB-C port. And something else we'd hope to do that I haven't even been able to try yet is I want to plug this in on the USB-C Thunderbolt port and see what kind of response we get. We haven't even gotten that far. That's how messed up this is. But again, this is a preface for the video if you want to watch the process in all it went. But if you don't, I'm giving you the synopsis right now. And at this stage where we're at, because I still would like to test RAID 1, but to do that, I have to reset the drive, and it takes about an hour. Oh, excuse me. It's going to take, I believe it's 2 hours to build a RAID, because it's an 8 terabyte drive. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, it's going to take an hour or two. My head is filled with details. So back to the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, to reiterate, I plugged into the USB-C port. I'm going to turn the device on and back. You'll see the power light on the left, and once it shows connection to the computer, these two drive lights will come on. Takes a minute, and as you're watching in the background, while it comes up, then we'll see those drives appear in device management. Or excuse me, in disk management. Yep, there they are. And there's the screen on the bottom right that says there's a problem with this drive, and then there's the drive that just popped up. And I can move that over. I want to keep the two screens up so you can still see. That just popped up again. And of course we have our 3 files as I move this down. Our 3 files, which are cache files, which shouldn't be there. And if I go back over here to this PC, and there's our drive, and click on it, I'm not getting the comment from Windows that it originally put up down here in the bottom right about there being a problem. There's definitely a problem. The question is, what is it? This is on the Gigabyte TRX40 Designaire. So clean install of Windows, which has happened many, many times. There's just something funky going on with this device. Not quite sure what it is. But I'm going to close all that. I'm going to find the results of the test again. Windows flag E. And Windows automatically creates the file and directory structure for this so that we can see screenshots. And let me go down and find it. Yep, I've done quite a few screenshots with this. Okay, here we go. That's where I was checking, showing I'd set it. The last one we had was the verification. So we get full screen on this. Let me close that out and just this. Okay, you're looking at a screen capture, and what this verifies is right here. I'll zoom in on this. Is that the 16 terabyte drive, because remember we're RAID 0, is 16 gigabyte test file. Going to the next one. This verifies in the top right that we're on the D drive. Again, to reiterate, 16 terabyte drive. Go to the next one, and there's the 2 folders, of which we now have 3. And back to our original. Okay, So that's where we're at right now with that device. It's up and running again, and it's connected again. But if I run the test again, I'm not going to let it run for an hour. 5 minutes, 15 minutes is one thing, and I thought it would take a little bit longer, but I've run this test too many times with too many drives, and I think there's something with the logic. I don't think it's the chipset, but there's something else with some of the logic on here that's not right on that board. So I'm going to try for test number 3, knowing right now the results are probably not going to work. So I'm going to put it back up on camera, and we're going to go back and forth with the instructions about what we need to do to reset it again. Okay, first things first, it was in JBOD, to reiterate, and we've been to RAID 0, and we're now going to change that configuration to RAID 1. So I'll disconnect, the 2 blue lights will go out, I'll power off the button in the back, I'm going to turn it around, now that it's off, and based on the instructions, we're going to change the jumpers to set the RAID. First things first, this time we want RAID 1, so according to the legend, switch number 1 down, switch number 2 up. Those are set. And then I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to set the button right here. But first, following the instructions, connect to the host computer, which we'll do, USB-C, done. Next step then is to turn on, which we'll do. Power light will be on the front, but now what I've got to do is hit that little jumper, and as it says to reiterate, using the tip of a screwdriver, press set for at least 5 seconds, then release the button. So this time, we're going to bring it up so you can see, and I will bring up the control panel. Excuse me, I'll go to control panel to the computer management. And it says again there's a problem with the drive down here in the bottom right, so we need to scan it, so I'll click on it. I'll put this down here where you can see it because I want to keep the other window up. Scan and fix. Repair drive. We found errors. There should be a key. This should take us over to logs, and the log shows absolutely nothing. So I'm going to close the log, let you see all of it. There's nothing in the log. Absolutely nothing. So to reiterate, I'll close the log. And then this dialog box about fixing things, I'll close that. And the disk, of course, pops up showing we have 3 temp files that I'm going to have to delete because a 4th one's going to be created. But since we're going to reformat it, it's going to clear all that, wipe it out. Okay, let's continue on with disk management. Okay, and it shows the device. Now that device is going to go away once I press this button on the back. I thought it might be more helpful to see what's going to happen with the computer than with the device by watching the lights on the front. So we'll press it for 5 seconds. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. And as you can see, we're back to 1 drive, and you saw how quickly that happened. I'm going to spin the device around, indicating we have connectivity. So to reiterate, power to the device on the left, and the 2 LEDs for D1 and D2 for the 2 drives in the container. So looking at Windows, unallocated, so left click in this area and right click and then initialize the disk. If I zoom in on that, yeah, that way you can see initialize the disk. I want to keep that up, and we get our wizard that pops up that you normally see. We're having to set manually. And again, I'll zoom in on that again. GPT disk 1. And yes, we're going to do GPT. Been through that many times. Now once this is set in this area, I'll click and right click, and I can now see if that'll show up where I can show both screens. Create a new simple volume. If I can zoom on that just a little bit better. Yeah, there it is. New simple volume. Okay? And that's what we're going to do. This should be fairly quick. We'll go through the wizard. 1, full size. We get a drive letter. It's important to note. one step, for some reason, we didn't get a drive letter allocated. We had to go back and set that. Next. This time we're going to go for MiniPro RAID 1. That's the configuration Bob wants. Even though I'm going to recommend you get a new one, I still want to continue with this because I'm curious. And if you notice, we've got it set. See if I can zoom in on that for quick format. I want to keep the drive up so you can see what happens. There's the wizard. It says everything it's going to do. All copacetic. Finish. Formatting the disk. I can zoom in on that. Right there. You can see it getting busy. And that should be a fairly quick process, because the next step then will be to do the test. And if everything went as it should, another screen should pop up with the open window showing that the drive light device is available, which will then, to reiterate, call it drive D. I hope this process is helpful to you guys to see what we've been through, and then you can watch the rest of the video, those that want to power through that. I appreciate your support. I'm eager to get my hands on one of these that works. And after doing this so many times, I think I could do it in my sleep. Yep, there's the folder popped up. Okay. And it shows up here at the top. I'll pull that over so you can see it right there. MiniPro RAID, which means we have a usable drive. The lights are still running. Now, at this step, based on everything working, I'm going to close down the stuff in the background. I'm going to leave the drive up just for a minute. But when I go to the applications for the test I want to perform, we didn't have to rebuild the RAID. We built the RAID fresh the first time out of the box. If we rebuild the RAID, then that's going to be an hour or two. So far, so good. Let's scroll down for our smart. Oh, well, now this is most fascinating. Right here we see the smart technology on the Seagate FireCuda 520. And to reiterate, the two drives have always been listed sequentially, and I'm not seeing smart technology on one of the drives. So that makes me question if there's an issue with the drive, which I did not expect, or if it's an issue with the chipset, I don't think, or if it's some logic, which is what I suspected. But now I question one of the drives. The drive that's been giving us grief, we're not seeing. So to reiterate, smart. One other thing we can check right quick before we go any further with the test. Let's see if the Samsung control panel, which is Samsung Magician, let me take this to one computer screen. Will show us both drives, or if it only shows one. Samsung Magician, and it still sees both drives. Now, I need to update Magician, but it shows the two drives and their firmware is fine. That's what I wanted to find out. Okay, I'll close that out, but I don't see the two drives here, which has me concerned. I don't quite know what to make of that. That's a new change of events. I think what I'm going to do, close the application. I'm going to go back to dual screen. Because I've changed configuration based on what I've seen every time I do, I'm going to do something different this time. We're going to go to computer management, disk management, and this time we're going to disconnect and then reconnect. So these two lights are going to go out. This is the one thing I haven't done. I've always, in other words, set the configuration and done the test, and there's always been a problem. So we're going to change that this time. I want to get different results. Let's see if maybe doing something different makes a difference. So dual screen, unplug it from the computer. Those two lights go out, and as you see in the background, the drive goes away. The light is still on because I'm going to go through the whole process and power down and see if we do a power up, if that makes a difference. So I'm going to go ahead, first things first, plug in the computer, USB-C, then on the back, turn it on. We'll see the drive come on the light, power to the device. Then once we have connectivity, these two lights will come on. And then in the background, we should see back here from disk management that drive reappear. I'm surprised it takes a little bit of time before connection is established here on the right with those two lights. Okay, connectivity in the background, then we have connectivity. Fantastic. And the window pops up with the drive. Now I'm going to go back. Since I know I've got a drive, close that down. I'm going to bring up Samsung Magician again. So we'll again go to one screen, see both drives, which we have. Close it again. I'm looking for some consistency of information. And let's see if hardware info this time, with just thermistors only, will see both drives. I don't know. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. But it really has me curious what's going on. Scrolling down to Smart, and wow. Smart Seagate FireCuda 520 and Smart on only one drive. Well, that tends to make me think that one drive has a problem. So my theory, or hypothesis if you will say, was originally, when we encountered the first test, would have been to open the device up and swap the drives out and see if we can figure out what the problem is. And I was even thinking about the next step of trying the drives individually in one of the IC dock racks and putting it in a standard rack, because it's a SATA drive, and see if they worked off the computer without the Oyen digital. But suffice to say, I've thought about that but haven't done that, because this is a new device. It should work. So I kind of think there may be something with one of the drives going on, which would be drive number 2. And since it looks like drive number 2 fell off the mask, fell off the face of the earth, that must be what we're seeing now. We should still see both drives. But what we don't know, let's see if we can run the test, because that'll be the proof in the doing. Okay, so we're only going to see Smart on one drive, which really has me concerned. We should see both drives. So we'll bring up Crystal Disk Mark, and we are set for drive D, which is now 8 terabytes. So we'll set the file test for 8 gigabytes all. We'll let it run. Now, to reiterate, normally this is a test that ought to take maybe 5-7 minutes tops. I would let this thing run as long as an hour, and I've told you about the results. So let's see what we have happen. I can put up the other screen right quick so you can see the device. Not that you'll learn a lot, but it's running, it's busy, it's doing something. But the problem is it's doing something, but we're not getting anything here. And I'm curious if we're going to get results. So I'm going to let this run, and I'm going to probably stop the recorder for right now, but I'm going to let this run for about an hour. I'll come back and check it, and I'll give you a progress report and let you know where we stand, because I want to share the information that we've got. And if I'm saying this and you're hearing it, it is what it is. Technology is great when it works. When it don't, it's a pile of junk. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. We learn more when we have problems than we do when things go right. The question is solving the problem, figuring out the solution. And if it's a defective disk, it's a defective disk. It happens. So we're going to cut the recording. Good luck with the test. We'll let it run for an hour. Ah, yes, and the magic of video. We are back. We have results. We let it sit for an hour. You're seeing that. And we have our test results. That's pathetic. I'm okay with the read. Could be a little bit better. But the write, no, I'm not okay with that. And I'm concerned, to reiterate, what we have for the results, where we have Smart on the Seagate FireCuda 520 boot drive, but we don't have Smart on both the Samsung drives that are in the Oyen digital device, the MiniPro RAID version 3. We're only seeing one, so I'm really concerned about that. However, when we bring up the Samsung control panel, it sees both drives and says the firmware is current. And it does see the drives because there's 2 different serial numbers. So I'm not quite sure. I'll close that. I'm not quite sure what to make out of this. I'll do a screen capture. I want those results. And I'm going to compare those numbers for those that are interested, where we'll go back to the Oyen Digital website, solid state, 16 terabyte. We'll scroll down, specs. Now, I want to point this out, and I didn't earlier and I should have. With JBOD, we ought to have 2 files there, one for each drive. RAID 0, I can accept 1, and RAID 1, I can accept 1. Let's bring up the JBOD. Those are the numbers. Not great, but acceptable. But that's only showing one drive. That doesn't show both drives, to reiterate. Let's look at RAID 0. We never got ours to finish. And they're showing the write should have been better than the read. We didn't get that far. And with where we're at right now, RAID 1, 555 and 494, as opposed to what we have with 516 and 28.73. So I don't know about you guys, but that tells me something ain't right. We've run all 3 tests. I've never had one beat me up like this one, but I learned a lot about it. I'm eager to get my hands on another one. This is what happens sometimes when products work, sometimes they don't. So my suggestion is going to be, first of all, the takeaway from this, patience, persistence, and perseverance. When we get a chance to look at another one, we'll do that. But with this right now, this was not about just the device. This was a lot about troubleshooting. And I'm beginning to think now that there may be something off with one of the drives. I don't know. But I don't think it's any point in going any further based on how long it's taken to run these tests and having to disconnect and reconnect, power up, power down, and all that. So I think the takeaway from this is patience, persistence, and perseverance. I want to thank you guys for sticking with us and watching this and sweating through this. I appreciate everybody. Love my subscribers. And by the way, welcome. This is Builder By. My name is Gil Boyd, and we'll look forward to seeing you next video. We're out.